Fair. There we go. Good morning and welcome to FilmStance Morning Edition, where we try to wake up by talking about movies. This is Caleb Allen. I'm here with CK Hicks,
Good morning.
and we're going to be talking about stuff that we've seen recently, stuff that we're excited to see, and our first take on those couple of things. So, CK, we've recently seen Avengers: Age of Ultron and The Age of Adeline, so we've been watching a lot of Age movies
Yeah.
um, recently. So, but let's contrast those two real quick. Just your initial thoughts on both of those movies.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are very, very different films. Age of Adeline was a lot of fun because you got kind of this movement through history. Whereas in Age of Ultron, they go back in time for a few things. And, so they play with time a little bit. They play with different roles and the way things were and the way things are now and the way, the interconnecting events, which is really, really cool. The very, very different kind of movie, obviously. Age of
Mm.
Adeline is predominantly a love story, whereas Age of Ultron is predominantly I guess, a war movie in a way. And so I really really liked Age of Adeline. I thought it was very well done, very well made, and overall just it surprised me. Um, Age of
Hmm.
Ultron was a little bit different story, and we've talked about that a little bit elsewhere, but it was not what I expected, and I didn't really like it as much just because I think they tried to do some stuff that broke out of the kind of the superhero Marvel movie and broke into sort of a immortals fighting one another type thing. So um, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how they resolve that series after kind of this progression toward basically a bunch of demigods fighting.
Yeah, Adeline especially was one of those movies that going in, you felt like it was either going to be completely stupid or it was going to be really beautiful. And I think they tended to do more of the beautiful stuff with it than the stupid stuff, which was nice. And then on the other side, you had Avengers, which was almost the same thing. It would either be super cool or it'd be really stupid. And unfortunately, I think Avengers trended more towards the being really stupid than the super cool. So it kind of a paradigm shift for me as far as those two movies. Because if I had to guess which one would have ended up the stupid or the cool, then I would have picked them opposite how they actually ended up. So um, as far as stuff coming out, though, we've got not a whole lot in May, not a whole lot in June. We've got a ton in July, but as far as May goes, we've got Tomorrowland for sure coming out in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
one
know what's the
actually,
date.
May 22nd is when Tomorrowland hits, and this one is kind of interesting to me. There's some elements of this story, so it's kind of it's
10
a
days.
retelling of sort of a City of Ember, or I'm trying to think of other ones that would relate to, but it's this location that exists primarily within their imagination, and they go there together, and they're trying to fix the real world through a setting that's kind of like cross dimensional. The aesthetically, this movie looks really really cool. The trailers for it have all been really pretty, and I think George Clooney plays a really good kind of contemplative, used to be boy wonder type person. But overall, I'm not. It hasn't sold me yet, just because I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to take away from it based on the trailers. Whereas usually, like in Age of Adeline, I could tell from the trailer that there was going to be something really moving and emotional that happens. In this, I'm just not quite sure what we're supposed to take away. So I don't know if they're just doing that intentionally, or maybe that's an indication of the film itself. So that's kind of my first thought on Tomorrowland. Uh,
Yeah, I just see it
What's
as
your
the place that's in Disney World.
Yeah, there's that. There's
Yeah,
that too.
that's
It's
the other dimension. They're all in Disney World the whole time. If you look at the movie from that perspective, I'm sure it's going to change the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny how some of these films come along, and then you see a progression in one way, and then when you get there you're like, oh, that was totally different than what I expected. So this could do that. I don't know. Now, one thing I am kind of excited for is Mr. Holmes, which is coming out in July. And
Hmm.
you have Ian McKellen playing an aged Sherlock Holmes. And if you follow anything that I do, I'm a Sherlock fan. And it looks interesting. Like, Ian McKellen is a phenomenal actor, and overall, it looks almost more like a masterpiece theater kind of thing than a a normal movie or show. So I I have kind of high hopes for that one, but I'm hoping I'm not wearing the rose colored glasses at this point.
I could see that being very similar in style to the Walt Disney movie that we had earlier last year. For whatever reason, the name's escaping me. Mr.
Saving
Banks,
Mr.
Saving
Banks.
Mr. Banks. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. So I could see it being very, very similar in style and feel to that movie, which hopefully it actually isn't quite that style because I didn't really care for the Mr. Banks movie.
Oh,
Uh,
really? See that
yeah.
the one thing about Saving Mr. Banks that I thought they did really, really well was they showed, for good or bad, they showed the connection to sort of the American history within the Walt Disney
Hmm.
world, the franchise of Walt Disney and how closely it ties to a lot of events throughout American history. You can do the same thing with
Yeah.
a lot of our entertainment. You can do it with Star Wars and World War II, and there's all these different pieces that have moved through uh, sort of American cinema that have come out of these main events in American history itself.
Hmm.
And so it was a cool comparison, but overall, it was I'm not sure again kind of if it was a good thing or if it was like here's what's at here's the perception of Disney and American history, and you should decide whether or not that's a good history for us to inherit, or
Yeah.
uh, whether that needs to be something we think about more in the future.
Yeah, the history part of it was definitely fascinating. I think what really got me was there wasn't a likable main character, and so as far as like a watching movie, it was really hard to watch from that perspective because it just there was nothing to root for, you know. You wanted Walt Disney to be able to make his movie, but even then, I felt like they portrayed him as kind of a guy that could get whatever he wants and not really be completely honest about it. His character was very kind and reassuring and heartfelt, but then at the same time, we kind of got the vibe from the movie that he really had ulterior motives and kind of was a guy that would say whatever he could to get what he wanted because he wasn't used to not having what he wanted. So, but it's a long rabbit trail for Saving Mr. Banks movie.
No, but it was.
Hopefully, Mr. Holmes is different.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of these movies dovetail into one another, not directly, obviously, but the
Yeah.
style or the momentum that you come out from one film and then another film is released and it kind of rides that wave, or maybe it crashes it and it starts something different. So it's fun to talk about the way these things flow, and that's something we're trying to do with these morning editions is take a look at what's going on currently, stuff we've seen, stuff that's coming out, and just provide a little bit of context and hopefully a little bit of insight on what you're going to be expecting and what you can expect from stuff that is currently playing.
Yeah, this one here won't take very long, but we should mention it because it's probably arguably the biggest release of May after Avengers. But Mad Max Fury Road coming out. It's a reboot of the old Mad Max. I don't know much about either one of them, but it is getting a lot of traction. Is there going to be anything in this movie worth watching at all?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the original one, which I actually plan to go back and watch just for a little bit of context. I know the basic
Mhm.
storyline. If you ever hear the term Thunderdome, this is where this comes from, is from these stories. And it is basically describing kind of what we saw in, um, oh, I mean, it's come out in a lot of different movies over the years, but we saw this in the Hunger Games films, um,
Mm.
and we've seen this in a few things lately that are kind of you put a bunch of people into this arena and they battle. That's essentially what Mad Max was. Is you had the Thunderdome and all these people coming together. I know for sure, based on the trailer, that the new Thunderdome movie is going to be at a different level of action, a tier different than the old film, because you can look at the old one. It was made in the 80s, I think, and they had very different standards for violence and all the stuff
Mhm.
going on. So I imagine there's going to be some rough spots, just on that arena. So that could be something to watch out for if you're sensitive to that. Uh, Overall, as far as the story is concerned, I'm not sure because I don't know the original, but I do plan on going back and watching it just to kind of understand where people are coming from.
Mhm. Well, that's all very good. I'm gonna start our morning now. Did it help us wake up, CK? Did the film stands morning? How was?
Yeah, no, it's been fun. We're planning to do these on a weekly basis, and so we hope if you have any comments, then leave them in the section below, and tune in the mornings. We'll work out an exact time for when we're going to be online and stuff, but you'll be able to watch these live, and then they'll go straight to YouTube. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.